The massive space station rotated slowly against the backdrop of distant stars, its metallic surface gleaming under the light of 3 different suns. Commander Zethkar adjusted his ceremonial armor as he walked through the corridors of the Galactic Military Academy, his 4 arms moving with practiced precision. Today was evaluation day, and representatives from 12 different species had gathered to assess the newest member of the Galactic Defense Coalition. Humans. The word still felt strange in Zethkar's mind. These bipedal creatures from a backwater planet called Earth had somehow managed to develop faster than light travel and requested membership in the coalition. Their technology seemed primitive by galactic standards, their weapons crude, and their military tactics questionable at best. Yet here they were, claiming they could contribute to the greatest military force the galaxy had ever known. "Commander Zethkar," came a voice behind him. He turned to see General Vorthok approaching, his massive frame casting shadows on the polished floor. The Krillian's 6 legs clicked rhythmically as he walked, his compound eyes reflecting the station's lights. "Have you reviewed the human military specifications?" "I have," Zethkar replied, his translator device converting his thoughts into the common galactic language. "Their weapons fire small metal projectiles using chemical explosives. No plasma. No energy beams. No molecular disruptors. Just chunks of metal flying through space." General Vorthok's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. "And their range? Their targeting systems? Primitive optical devices called scopes. Some use basic electronic assistance, but nothing approaching our quantum targeting matrices or psychic guidance systems." Zethkar shook his head. "I've seen children's toys with more sophisticated technology." The 2 officers entered the observation deck, where other coalition representatives had already gathered. Through the reinforced transparasteel windows, they could see the training grounds below. Various alien species demonstrated their military capabilities in rotating displays. The Zephyrians showed off their plasma cannons that could melt through starship hulls from 3 kilometers away. The Nexus demonstrated their mind-controlled projectiles that could curve around obstacles and strike targets hiding behind cover. "When do the humans present?" asked Captain Ziltar, her crystalline form refracting the light into rainbow patterns. Her species, the Vorthari, were known throughout the galaxy for their precision beam weapons that could slice through matter at the molecular level. "Next," Zethkar said, checking his datapad. "They've requested an unusually large area for their demonstration. Apparently, they need extended range for their weapons to be effective." This brought another round of clicking, buzzing, and harmonic sounds that served as laughter among the assembled aliens. Extended range? Most modern weapons could accurately strike targets in orbit from a planet's surface. What could these humans possibly need extended range for with their primitive projectile weapons? Below them, the training area began to reconfigure. Holographic targets appeared at various distances. Some close, some far, some moving in complex patterns. The aliens watched with polite but skeptical interest as a group of humans entered the arena. There were only 6 of them, compared to the dozens or hundreds that other species had sent for their demonstrations. They wore simple camouflaged clothing, rather than powered armor, carried equipment that looked like it had been manufactured decades ago by galactic standards, and moved with an unhurried confidence that seemed almost casual. "Is this some kind of joke?" muttered Admiral Kethrin, his tentacles writhing with amusement. His aquatic species had dominated naval warfare across 17 star systems. 6 soldiers? With equipment that primitive, the humans spread out across the training area with practiced efficiency. They didn't rush, didn't show off with flashy movements or intimidating weapons displays. Instead, they simply found positions. Some lying prone behind artificial barriers, others crouching in elevated positions, one settling into what appeared to be a completely exposed location in the center of the arena. "Attention coalition observers," came a human voice through the communication system. The translator indicated the speaker was someone called Sergeant Martinez. "We will now demonstrate effective engagement ranges for standard human infantry weapons. First demonstration will show our standard assault rifle capability." One of the humans raised his weapon, a black metal device that looked like a tool rather than a weapon of war. There was a series of sharp cracking sounds, barely audible through the observation deck's audio system. On the displays, targets began registering hits at distances that made the aliens lean forward with mild interest. The accuracy was respectable, though nothing compared to their own weapons. Adequate for close-range combat, observed General Vorthak. Though I noticed significant projectile drop and wind interference at longer ranges. The demonstration continued with different human weapons. They showed shotguns effective at very close range, machine guns that could suppress areas with high volumes of fire, and various explosive devices. The aliens watched with growing boredom. Everything they saw was exactly what they had expected: primitive, limited-range weapons suitable for fighting on a single planet, but useless for serious military operations. And now, Sergeant Martinez announced, we'll demonstrate long-range precision engagement. The human in the center of the arena, a woman with short brown hair and calm eyes, adjusted her position slightly. She was lying flat against the ground, her weapon resting on a bipod device. The weapon itself looked similar to the others they had seen, but longer, with a more complex optical device mounted on top. The training area's holograms shifted, and new targets appeared. The aliens in the observation deck had to check their displays twice to confirm the distances. The nearest target was positioned at what humans apparently called 800 meters. The furthest was at 2,000 meters. 2,000 meters? Captain Ziltar's crystalline form chimed with disbelief. With a projectile weapon? Using optical targeting? Admiral Kethrin's tentacles had stopped writhing. At those distances, they would need to calculate for planetary rotation, atmospheric pressure variations, wind speed at multiple altitudes, projectile drop due to gravity. Surely they don't expect to hit anything at such ranges with such primitive technology, General Vorthak said, though his voice carried less certainty than his words. The human sniper made minute adjustments to her scope, studied wind indicators placed around the range, and consulted what appeared to be a paper chart covered with numbers and calculations. She took a deep breath, released half of it, and became perfectly still. The observation deck fell silent. The rifle cracked once, a sharp, clean sound that seemed insignificant compared to the roar of plasma cannons or the hum of energy weapons. On the display screens, the furthest target registered a hit. Dead center. Atmospheric interference must have affected the sensors, Zethkar said quickly. Recalibrate the targeting systems. The sniper adjusted her aim slightly and fired again. The second furthest target registered a hit. Then the third. Then the fourth. Each shot was deliberate, calculated, and precise. The human didn't rush, didn't spray projectiles hoping one would connect. She took her time, made her calculations, and placed each shot exactly where she intended. The aliens watched in growing amazement as target after target fell to single shots from distances they had considered impossible for projectile weapons. The human wasn't using energy shields to stop return fire because there was no return fire. She was killing targets before they even knew she was there. "How is this possible?" whispered Captain Ziltar. "The computational requirements alone should be beyond their technology." Below them, Sergeant Martinez spoke into his communicator. "Observer deck. This is Martinez. Would you like to see combat effective rates of fire at these ranges?" Before anyone could answer, the sniper began firing in a steady rhythm. Not rapid fire like the machine guns they had seen earlier, but measured shots spaced perhaps 3 seconds apart. Target after target registered hits. Moving targets changed direction and speed, but still fell to her perfectly placed shots. "She's calculating trajectories in her head," General Vorthak breathed. "In real time. For moving targets. With a manually operated weapon." The demonstration concluded with the sniper engaging multiple targets at varying ranges in rapid succession. She would fire at a target 2,000 meters away, immediately shift to one at 1,200 meters, then to one at 800 meters, then back to maximum range. Each shot hit its mark. Each shot was a kill. When the shooting stopped, the arena fell silent, except for the faint hum of the station's environmental systems. The humans began packing their equipment with the same casual efficiency they had shown at the beginning. They didn't celebrate, didn't show off, didn't seem to think they had done anything particularly impressive. Sergeant Martinez, Zethkar activated his communicator, his voice carefully controlled. What you have shown us is unexpected. However, in real combat situations, surely your soldier would be detected and eliminated by return fire before she could engage multiple targets? The human's laugh carried clearly through the communication system. Commander, with respect, that's the whole point. By the time an enemy knows where the shot came from, their people are already dead. A good sniper doesn't get into firefights. She ends them before they begin. Admiral Kethrin's tentacles were now completely motionless. And your maximum effective range? Depends on conditions and ammunition, Martinez replied. Our record for a confirmed kill is approximately 4,000 meters. That's about 2.5 of your standard galactic distance units. 4,000 meters. The aliens exchanged glances that ranged from impressed to worried. Most of their energy weapons lost effectiveness beyond 1,000 meters due to atmospheric scattering and power dissipation. This human had just demonstrated precise kills at twice that range, with technology their computers had classified as primitive. How many soldiers in your military can perform at this level? General Vorthok asked carefully. This level? Specialist Rodriguez here is above average but not exceptional. We have approximately 50,000 trained snipers in our active military, with another 100,000 in reserves who can perform effectively at ranges over 1,000 meters. The observation deck fell completely silent. 150,000 soldiers capable of killing at ranges their own troops couldn't effectively return fire. And if this Rodriguez was above average, but not exceptional, what could their best snipers do? Captain Ziltar's crystalline form began cycling through colors rapidly, a sign of stress among her people. Sergeant Martinez, surely your weapon technology cannot be mass-produced? The precision required for such accuracy must make each weapon incredibly expensive. Ma'am, the rifle specialist Rodriguez is using cost approximately 800 of our credits to manufacture. We currently have about 12 million similar rifles in our military inventory. 12 million. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. The aliens had been prepared to laugh at human military technology, to politely accept them as a member species, and then assign them to support roles far from actual combat. Instead, they were looking at a military force that could potentially pick apart their own troops before their enemies even knew they were under attack. Commander Zethkar? General Vorthak said quietly, his translator picking up the subtle harmonics that indicated serious concern. I believe we need to revise our assessment protocols for human military capabilities. Zethkar nodded slowly, his four eyes focused on the humans below as they finished securing their equipment. Indeed. It appears we have been operating under some misconceptions about the effectiveness of primitive technology in skilled hands. Below them, the humans filed out of the arena with the same unhurried confidence they had shown entering. They weren't boasting, weren't demanding recognition for their impressive performance. They simply packed up their primitive weapons and left, as if hitting targets from impossible ranges with iron sights and manual calculations was just another day's work. As the observation deck began to empty, Zethkar found himself thinking about the implications of what they had just witnessed. The Galactic Coalition had existed for over 3 centuries, built on the assumption that advanced technology and overwhelming firepower determined military superiority. These humans had just demonstrated that sometimes the most dangerous enemy was the one you never saw coming. The station continued its slow rotation, carrying with it a group of alien military commanders who were beginning to realize they might have severely underestimated Earth's newest applicants to their exclusive club. 3 weeks later, the emergency klaxons echoed through the Coalition command ship times, eternal vigilance times, as it hung in orbit above the contested world of Zirion Prime. The planet below, churned with storms, its surface scarred by the ongoing rebellion that had torn apart 6 major cities and left the planetary government in ruins. Commander Zethkar rushed through the corridors toward the Situation Room, his 4 arms working frantically over his personal data pad. The reports streaming in made little sense. The Zirion rebels, armed with stolen Coalition weapons and supported by pirate fleets, had somehow managed to inflict massive casualties on the peacekeeping forces. 3 entire battalions had been routed, their commanders either dead or missing, their equipment abandoned in panicked retreats. Commander, General Vorthak's voice boomed through the comm system. Emergency Council meeting. Situation Room 7. Immediate attendance required. Zethkar burst through the doors to find chaos. Officers from a dozen species crowded around holographic displays showing tactical readouts from the planet's surface. Admiral Kethrin's tentacles writhed in agitation, while Captain Ziltar's crystalline form flickered between colors so rapidly it was painful to watch. "What's our status?" Zethkar demanded. "Catastrophic," Admiral Kethrin replied without preamble. "The Zerion rebels have acquired advanced weaponry from somewhere. Our ground forces are taking casualties at an unprecedented rate." General Vorthak manipulated the central hologram, zooming in on a mountain range where coalition forces had been attempting to establish forward operating bases. Red markers indicated casualty reports, equipment losses, and failed objectives. The display looked like a disease spreading across the tactical map. "Show him the Cathara Battalion incident," Captain Ziltar said, her form now a steady, worried blue. The hologram shifted to show combat footage from helmet cameras. Zethkar watched as a full company of Cathara warriors, 7-foot-tall reptilian soldiers, renowned for their ferocity and advanced armor, advanced through a rocky canyon toward a suspected rebel position. Their powered suits gleamed in the alien sunlight, their plasma rifles ready for engagement. The first warrior simply dropped. One moment he was moving forward with his squad, the next he was crashing to the ground. A smoking hole punched through his supposedly impenetrable armor. The other Cathara spun around, searching for the source of the attack, their weapons ready. Several seconds later, another warrior fell. Then another. "Where are the shots coming from?" Zethkar asked, leaning forward to study the footage. "Watch," General Vorthak said grimly. The remaining Cathara warriors began firing frantically in all directions, their plasma bolts lighting up the canyon walls. Their targeting computers couldn't locate the source of the attacks. Their movement sensors showed nothing. Their thermal imaging detected no heat signatures. Yet one by one, they continued to fall. The footage ended with the last surviving warrior running in full retreat, his powerful legs carrying him away from the canyon at maximum speed. Behind him, 8 of the Coalition's most elite soldiers lay dead, killed by an enemy they never saw. "The rebels have snipers," Zethkar said slowly. "Advanced ones. That's what we thought initially," Admiral Kethrin said. "But look at this." He activated another display, this one showing ballistics analysis of the recovered projectiles. The projectiles are made of simple metal alloys. No exotic materials, no energy charges, no smart guidance systems. Just chunks of lead and copper, moving at high velocity. Zethkar stared at the analysis. "That's impossible. To penetrate Cathara, combat armor at the ranges indicated would require massive amounts of kinetic energy." "Yes," General Vorthak finished. "More than any projectile weapon in our databases could deliver." Except, the 3 officers looked at each other as the same realization dawned. "The humans," Zethkar breathed. Captain Ziltar's form shifted to a deep red. "You don't think? Surely the Coalition wouldn't deploy them without informing us." "Emergency authorization," Admiral Kethrin said, his tentacles now moving in sharp, agitated patterns. "The High Council approved human deployment to Zerion Prime 6 days ago. They're operating under the designation Long-Range Reconnaissance Unit 12. General Vorthak called up new footage, this one from aerial drones monitoring the battlefield. This was recorded yesterday morning. Grid reference 7-7 Alpha, approximately 12 kilometers from the Cathara incident. The drone footage showed a barren hilltop overlooking a vast valley. Nothing moved except wind-blown dust and the occasional piece of debris. Then suddenly, muzzle flashes appeared from positions that seemed to contain nothing but empty ground. Tiny puffs of smoke, barely visible against the rocks. "Enhance grid sections 4 through 9, the general commanded. The image zoomed in and sharpened. What had appeared to be empty terrain revealed itself to contain perfectly camouflaged positions. Humans lay motionless among the rocks. Their weapons and bodies blended so seamlessly with the environment that even knowing where to look, they were difficult to spot. "How long have they been there?" Zethkar asked. "Based on satellite imagery analysis, at least 72 hours. They haven't moved from those positions, except for minor adjustments. General Vorthok manipulated the display to show range calculations. From this hilltop, they can observe and engage targets across approximately 40 square kilometers of terrain. Any rebel movement in that entire area is visible to them. Admiral Kethrin's tentacles had gone completely still, a sign of deep concern among his species. And the rebels have no idea they're there. The drone footage continued, showing the results of the humans' work. Small groups of rebel fighters moved through the valley below, believing themselves hidden among the rocky outcroppings and sparse vegetation. One by one, they simply dropped to the ground. No warning, no visible source of attack, just sudden death from an invisible enemy. The rebels are calling it ghost fire, Captain Ziltar reported, her colors cycling between blue and purple. Their forces are refusing to move during daylight hours. Some units have abandoned their positions entirely and retreated to underground facilities. Zethkar studied the tactical implications. 12 humans have effectively rendered 40 square kilometers of terrain uninhabitable for enemy forces. It's worse than that, General Vorthok said. Show him the psychological warfare reports. New data streams appeared on the displays. Intercepted rebel communications painted a picture of an army in the grip of terror. Units reported impossible long-range attacks, invisible enemies, and comrades dying without warning. Morale had collapsed. Discipline was breaking down. Entire companies were refusing orders to advance into areas where human snipers might be operating. They don't understand what they're facing, Admiral Kethrin observed. To them, it must seem like magic. Even knowing what we know, it seems impossible, Zethkar admitted. How can 12 soldiers have such an effect on an entire military campaign? The answer came in the form of additional tactical reports. The humans weren't just shooting enemy soldiers. They were systematically destroying the rebels' ability to function as a military force. Communications equipment disappeared in bursts of sparks when precisely placed bullets struck crucial components. Vehicle engines seized when projectiles found their way into critical systems. Supply convoys became afraid to move during daylight hours. They're not just snipers, General Vorthok realized. They're conducting a comprehensive campaign of psychological and infrastructure warfare, using nothing but individual projectile weapons. The holographic display shifted to show real-time intelligence reports. Rebel forces were consolidating in underground bunkers, emerging only at night, and then only in large groups with maximum cover and concealment. Their operational capability had been reduced by an estimated 70%. "Sir," came a voice from the communication station. "Priority message from the surface. Human unit commander requesting conference with coalition leadership." Zethkar straightened his ceremonial armor. "Put them through." The hologram shimmered and reformed to show a human face. The woman appeared to be in her 30s, with weathered features and calm, intelligent eyes. She wore the same simple camouflaged uniform they had seen at the weapons demonstration, but now it was stained with dust and dirt from days in the field. "Coalition Command, this is Major Sarah Chen, Long-Range Reconnaissance Unit 12. We've successfully established overwatch positions on primary rebel movement corridors and eliminated immediate threats to coalition ground forces." "Major Chen," Zethkar said carefully, "your unit has exceeded expectations. However, we're concerned about the sustainability of your current operations. Surely the rebels will adapt their tactics to counter your activities?" The human's expression remained unchanged. "Sir, we've been tracking rebel adaptation attempts for the past 18 hours. They're implementing standard counter-sniper protocols. Moving at night, using smoke cover, avoiding open terrain, varying their routes. All textbook responses." "And?" Admiral Kethrin asked. "And none of it matters," Major Chen said simply. "They're adapting to fight an enemy they understand. But they don't understand us. They think in terms of energy weapons with limited range and targeting systems that can be jammed or deceived. They don't know how to fight someone who can put a bullet through a 2-inch opening from 1,500 meters away, using nothing but skill and experience." Captain Ziltar's form cycled through several colors before settling on a worried yellow. "Major, what exactly are your current capabilities on the ground?" "Ma'am, My snipers have established overlapping fields of fire across the entire rebel operational area. We can observe and engage any target that moves during daylight hours within a 20-kilometer radius of our positions. Our night vision equipment gives us limited but effective capability during darkness. The rebels have essentially lost the ability to conduct coordinated military operations. The implications hit Zethkar like a physical blow. 12 humans with primitive weapons had accomplished what 3 coalition battalions with advanced technology had failed to achieve. They had effectively ended the Xerion rebellion without the need for massive ground assaults, orbital bombardments, or the deployment of additional forces. Major, General Vorthok asked slowly, what are your ammunition requirements? Surely you must be running low on projectiles after such intensive operations. The human's slight smile was visible even through the holographic transmission. Sir, each of my snipers carries approximately 200 rounds of ammunition. In the past 72 hours, we fired a total of 86 shots. We have sufficient ammunition for approximately 6 more weeks of operations at current engagement rates. 86 shots. The aliens looked at each other in amazement. Coalition forces typically expended thousands of energy charges in a single engagement. These humans were achieving strategic objectives with less ammunition than most soldiers carried for a single patrol. Major Chen, Admiral Kethrin said, his tentacles beginning to move in patterns that indicated deep thought. In your assessment, how would human sniper tactics perform against coalition military forces? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Major Chen considered it carefully before responding. Admiral, with respect, that would depend on the specific scenario and objectives. However, I can say that most coalition forces we've observed rely heavily on technology for target acquisition and engagement. They move in predictable patterns, use equipment that produces detectable signatures, and operate under the assumption that their armor and shields provide adequate protection. She paused, letting the implications sink in. Against an enemy they can see and engage with their own weapons. Coalition forces are extremely effective. Against an enemy they can't see, can't detect, and can't engage, the results might be very different. The communication ended, leaving the coalition officers alone with their thoughts. The Xerion rebellion was effectively over. Crushed by 12 humans with what their computers still classified as primitive weapons. But the larger questions raised by this success were far more troubling. General, Zethkar said quietly, I believe we need to completely revise our understanding of human military capabilities. General Vorthok's compound eyes reflected the glow of the tactical displays. Yes, and more importantly, we need to ensure that these humans remain our allies. The thought sent a chill through the Situation Room. An enemy that could kill with precision from distances their own forces couldn't effectively return fire, that could remain invisible for days while systematically destroying military capabilities, that could achieve strategic objectives with minimal resources. Such an enemy would be unlike anything the Coalition had ever faced. Outside the ship's windows, the planet Xerion Prime continued its slow rotation, now peaceful under the watchful eyes of 12 human snipers who had redefined the very nature of warfare in the galaxy. 6 months after Xerion Prime, the Coalition training facility on Nexar Station buzzed with unprecedented activity. Representatives from every member species had gathered for the most ambitious military exercise in galactic history. The official purpose was integration training between human forces and traditional Coalition units. The unofficial purpose was to discover just how dangerous these humans actually were. Commander Zethkar stood in the primary observation chamber, watching as thousands of Coalition's finest soldiers prepared for what they believed would be a routine training exercise. The Cathara Assault Corps had brought their most experienced warriors. The Zephyrian Plasma Artillery Division had deployed their newest energy weapons. The Nexus had sent their elite mind warriors, capable of controlling multiple weapons simultaneously through psychic links. Against this overwhelming display of galactic military might, the humans had sent 50 soldiers. Commander, General Vorthok approached, his 6 legs clicking nervously on the metal floor. Are you certain this exercise is wise? The humans seem outnumbered. Zethkar studied the tactical displays. 1,000 coalition troops versus 50 humans, fighting across a continent-sized training ground with mixed terrain. The odds seem reasonable for a training exercise. Admiral Kethrin's tentacles writhed as he joined them. Reasonable for us, perhaps, but after Zirion Prime, I'm not so certain we understand what reasonable means when humans are involved. The exercise parameters were straightforward. Coalition forces would advance across the training ground to capture 3 strategic objectives, while the humans attempted to prevent them. Both sides would use training weapons that delivered stunning electrical charges instead of lethal force, allowing for realistic combat simulation without actual casualties. Exercise begins in 60 seconds, announced the station's artificial intelligence. All units report ready status. And, through the observation windows, they could see the coalition forces forming up in their traditional attack formations. Cathara warriors in powered armor formed the vanguard, their plasma rifles charged and ready. Behind them, Zephyrian artillery units set up their energy cannons, while Nexus Mind Warriors established psychic coordination networks. The force looked invincible. Coalition units, ready for advance, came the report from Colonel Drexman, the Cathara officer commanding the exercise force. Enemy positions are not visible. Proceeding with standard reconnaissance and advance procedures. The humans, meanwhile, had simply vanished. Zethkar checked the tracking systems twice. The humans had been inserted into the training area 6 hours earlier, but their positions were not visible on any sensors. Are the tracking systems malfunctioning? Negative, replied the station AI. All human participants are confirmed alive and present in the exercise area. However, their exact positions cannot be determined due to their concealment methods. The coalition advance began with textbook precision. Scouts moved forward in established patterns. Energy weapons swept potential hiding spots, and the main force advanced in mutually supporting formations. For 30 minutes, everything proceeded exactly as their tactical manuals suggested it should. Then the killing began. The first casualty was a Cathara scout who simply collapsed as his armor's training systems registered a fatal hit. The shot had come from over a kilometer away, through a gap between 2 hills that the coalition forces had assumed was too narrow for effective fire. Before the other scouts could react, 2 more went down in rapid succession. Contact front, Colonel Drexman barked into his communicator. Enemy snipers in the northwest hills. Artillery. Suppress that position. Zephyrian energy cannons roared to life, sending brilliant plasma bolts into the hillside, where the shots seemed to have originated. The entire ridgeline disappeared in a spectacular display of pyrotechnics and vaporized rock. When the smoke cleared, the position appeared utterly destroyed. 3 minutes later, another scout died from a shot that came from the same direction. Impossible, breathed General Vorthak. We just obliterated that entire area. Admiral Kethrin's tentacles had gone completely motionless, unless they were never actually there. The coalition advance continued, but now every soldier was nervous. They moved in shorter bounds, spent more time in cover, and fired at every suspicious shadow. Their rate of advance slowed dramatically as paranoia spread through the ranks. "Sir," came a panicked voice over the communication system. "This is Sergeant Klicktar, 3rd Reconnaissance Squad. We've lost contact with the 2nd Squad. They were advancing through the Valley Pass when their signals just stopped." Colonel Drexman pulled up the tactical display. 2nd Squad's position indicators showed all 6 soldiers down, their training systems registering fatal hits. What happened to them? Did anyone see the enemy? No, sir. One moment they were moving through the pass. The next moment they were down. No visible attackers. No return fire opportunity. The implications sent a chill through the coalition command structure. An entire squad eliminated without anyone seeing the enemy responsible. This wasn't warfare as they understood it. This was something else entirely. All units, implement maximum dispersion and cover protocols. Colonel Drexman ordered. Advance by individual rushes, maintain communication at all times. The new tactics slowed the coalition advance to a crawl, but they seemed to reduce casualties. For nearly an hour, the force moved forward with only occasional losses. A soldier here and there picked off when they exposed themselves to cross open ground. Then they reached the forest. The wooded area stretched for several kilometers between the coalition forces and their first objective. Standard tactics called for a coordinated sweep through the trees, clearing potential ambush positions as they advanced. They made it exactly 200 meters into the forest before the massacre began. Shots fired from multiple directions. Someone screamed over the radio, "Taking heavy casualties." "Where are they shooting from?" Colonel Drexmond demanded. "I don't know. The trees, the ground, everywhere. I can't see them." The coalition forces found themselves in a nightmare. Soldiers fell steadily to precisely placed shots, but return fire was impossible because there were no visible targets. Muzzle flashes appeared and disappeared so quickly that by the time weapons were trained on their positions, the shooters had already moved. Fall back to the forest edge," Colonel Drexmond ordered. The retreat quickly became a rout as panic spread through the ranks. Soldiers abandoned their careful formations and ran for open ground, leaving behind equipment and wounded comrades in their desperation to escape the invisible death stalking them through the trees. When the survivors finally reached safety, Colonel Drexmond counted his forces. Of the 300 soldiers who had entered the forest, only 147 remained combat effective. The humans had eliminated more than half of his force in less than 20 minutes. "Sir," one of his sergeants reported, "we need medical teams for the wounded, but I don't understand how they're doing this. We've been trained to fight every known species in the galaxy, but nothing prepared us for enemies we can't even see." In the observation chamber, the coalition leadership watched in stunned silence. The humans had just demonstrated that all their advanced technology, all their sophisticated tactics, all their military experience meant nothing against an enemy that could remain invisible and kill at will. "Commander Zethkar," came a human voice through the communication system. "This is Colonel James Harrison, commanding human forces, requesting permission to speak with coalition leadership." "Permission granted," Zethkar replied, though his voice sounded hollow. A holographic image materialized in the center of the observation chamber. Colonel Harrison appeared to be in his 40s, with graying hair and the calm demeanor they had come to associate with human military officers. He was sitting against a tree in broad daylight, apparently unconcerned about being spotted by coalition forces. "Sir, my forces have achieved the primary training objectives. All 3 strategic positions are under our control, and enemy forces have been neutralized or forced to retreat. However, I'd like to propose a modification to the exercise parameters." General Vorthok leaned forward. "What kind of modification?" "We'd like to give your forces a fair chance to engage us directly. My soldiers will reveal their positions and meet your units in open combat, using the same weapons and tactics your forces prefer." Admiral Catherine's tentacles writhed uncertainly. "You're offering to give up your advantages?" "Yes, sir. We want to demonstrate that human military effectiveness isn't just about hiding and long-range shooting. We can fight your way too, if necessary." Colonel Drexmond's voice crackled through the communication system from the surface. "Coalition Command, this is Field Commander. The human offer is accepted. We request permission to engage in direct assault against revealed enemy positions." "Permission granted," Zethkar said. "But Colonel Harrison, surely you realize that in direct combat, your soldiers will be outnumbered 10 to 1? The human's slight smile was visible through the hologram. "Commander, with respect, we've always been outnumbered. We're used to it." What followed defied every principle of military science the coalition had developed over 3 centuries. 50 humans, armed with projectile weapons and wearing simple body armor, engaged nearly 600 coalition soldiers in direct combat across open terrain. The humans fought like demons. They used terrain features the coalition forces had dismissed as insignificant. They coordinated their movements with a precision that seemed almost telepathic. They switched between defensive and offensive tactics so rapidly that their opponents couldn't adapt. When coalition forces concentrated to overwhelm a position, the humans simply melted away and struck from unexpected directions. Most importantly, they never stopped shooting. While coalition forces had to pause to recharge their energy weapons or wait for targeting systems to lock on, the humans maintained steady, accurate fire that forced their enemies to spend more time in cover and less time advancing. How are they reloading so quickly? Captain Ziltar asked, her crystalline form cycling through colors rapidly as she watched human soldiers swap ammunition magazines in seconds. Manual systems, Admiral Kethrin replied, understanding beginning to dawn on him. No power requirements. No cooling periods. No electronic components to fail. Their weapons work as long as they have ammunition and functioning parts. The battle raged for 2 hours before Colonel Drexmon finally called for a ceasefire. Coalition casualties had reached critical levels. Nearly 70% of his force had been eliminated or wounded. The humans had lost exactly 4 soldiers. Exercise terminated, announced the station AI. Victory achieved by human forces. All participants report to medical stations for evaluation. 2. The observation chamber fell silent except for the hum of environmental systems. 3 of the galaxy's most experienced military leaders sat in stunned contemplation of what they had just witnessed. General, Zethkar said quietly, I believe we need to completely restructure our understanding of military power. General Vorthok's compound eyes reflected the displays showing casualty reports. We've been focusing on advancing our technology, making our weapons more powerful, our armor more sophisticated, our targeting systems more precise. But the humans have advanced something else entirely. What do you mean? Admiral Kethrin asked. They've advanced the warrior, Captain Ziltar said, her form now a steady, thoughtful blue. Their weapons are tools. Their technology serves them. But at the core, their military effectiveness comes from the individual soldier's skill, adaptability, and determination. Colonel Harrison's image remained in the holographic display. Coalition Command. My forces are ready for debriefing and integration planning. We're looking forward to working alongside your units in future operations. Zethkar straightened his ceremonial armor and faced the hologram. Colonel Harrison, on behalf of the Coalition High Command, I want to formally welcome humanity as full members of our military alliance. Your forces have demonstrated capabilities that will significantly enhance our collective security. Thank you, sir. We're honored to serve alongside such distinguished military traditions. After the communication ended, General Vorthok activated his personal datapad and began composing a priority message to Coalition High Command. I'm recommending immediate implementation of human training methods across all Coalition forces, he announced. And I'm also recommending that we never, under any circumstances, find ourselves on the opposite side of a conflict from these humans. Admiral Kethrin's tentacles moved in patterns of agreement. Agreed. I've seen enough demonstrations of human military capability. The next time someone suggests that primitive technology makes for weak soldiers, I'm going to show them recordings from today. Outside the observation windows, the artificial suns that illuminated Nexar Station continued their programmed cycles, casting light over a galaxy that had just been introduced to a new definition of military excellence. The humans had arrived with weapons the Coalition considered primitive, tactics they thought obsolete, and equipment they classified as outdated. But they had forgotten the most important lesson of warfare. The weapon doesn't make the warrior. The warrior makes the weapon. And humanity, it turned out, had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of making warriors. The galaxy would never be the same. As the Coalition forces began their long process of recovery and re-evaluation, 50 human soldiers quietly cleaned their weapons, checked their equipment, and prepared for whatever mission came next. They had proven their point, not through boasting or demonstrations of technology, but through the simple, devastating effectiveness that had carried their species from the caves of Earth to the stars beyond. In the end, that effectiveness spoke louder than any words could ever convey. The Coalition had learned to respect human weapons. Now they were learning to respect the humans who wielded them. And across the galaxy, military planners began the difficult task of rewriting their tactical manuals to account for an ally whose greatest strength wasn't their technology, but their refusal to give up, give in, or give quarter to anyone foolish enough to underestimate them. The age of human military integration had begun, and the galaxy was about to discover just how much more dangerous it could become, with 50,000 trained snipers watching its borders.